Hi, this is just a short video to go over the exponent rules that we've learned this chapter. One of the first exponent rules that we learned about the quotient rule. So when you have a quotient, or that just means two numbers divided by each other, you have to think about each of the values separately. So really the first thing you're looking at is just your coefficient, or just the numbers. So if you have negative 12 divided by a positive 4, that would just be a negative 3 over 1. You're just reducing your fraction. Then when you look at your x values, again, that's like representing 3 x's over 2 x's. And what we've seen is that you can again cancel out the like terms, so you would have 1 x left on top, and likewise with the y's, that would be 1 y on top, and you would have 2 y's on the bottom, so one of the y's would cancel out. So your final answer to this first problem, like we've been practicing, would be a negative 3, and then there would just be a single x on top, again because there's 3 on top and only 2 on the bottom. 3 minus 2 is 1. And then you'd have a 1, which we usually don't write, and a y on the bottom. And if you saw that, that would be 1 minus 2, which is a negative 1, and that's why it's on the bottom. So we're just repeating all of our exponent rules in terms of quotients. This next example, we're going to use our power to a power rule. So since in the first quotient, or rational expression, nothing's changing, we're just going to rewrite it, and now in the second one, we're going to apply the exponent. Now, you have to think of a negative sign as a negative 1. So if you square a negative 1, that would just be a positive 1. And if you square y cubed, our exponent rule said that you would multiply them and you get 6. Likewise, you'd have to square a 2, and squaring a 2 would be 4. And squaring an x squared would be an x to the 4th. Now that you have your quotient or your power to a power rule simplified, now we can apply our product rule. And our product rule just means multiply straight across. Product means multiply. So 2 times 1 is 2. X squared times y to the 6th. On the bottom we have 4. X to the 4th. Y cubed. So we've applied our power to a power, our product, and now we're going to go through our quotient rule like we were before. First, you can simplify just your whole numbers, your coefficients. So that's 1/2. 2 minus 4 is a negative 2, which means that would be 2 on the bottom. And 6 minus 3 is 3, so that would be 3, or y cubed, on the top. So that is my answer to my second example. In my third example, we have 3 different expressions, and I'm going to apply the power to a power rule. Now, notice that everything in this first expression is raised to the 0 power, and we learned that rule, that anything raised to the 0 power is just 1. So this first entire parenthesis is just 1. Our next quotient or expression would be apply the power, so that would be u to a negative 2. And v to the 4th. And then in our last expression, we would have u to the negative 1, and we'd have v to the negative 2. And again, whenever you don't see it, you have to remember that this is over 1. So we applied our power rule. Our next step that we've been using is that we look for our negative exponents and we flip locations. Again, since I'm multiplying by 1, I don't really have to worry about it. So my first expression, this would be 1 over u squared v to the 4th. And in my second expression, both of them are negative, so that would become u to the 1st and v squared on the bottom. And now I'm going to apply my product rule. So 1 times 1 is 1. U squared times a u is u cubed. And v to the 4th times v squared. Again, product rule means that you add them. This would be v to the 6th. So that is my third example. In my fourth example, I'm going to go through first and just do my power rule. So this would be 3 to the negative 1. You have to apply it to every value. This would be x squared, because a negative times a negative is a positive, and it would be y to a negative 1. In my bottom example, or bottom expression, notice that everything is raised to the 0 power, and like we said in question 3, everything to the 0 power then would just be 1. All of those numbers would become 1. Now I'm going to apply my negative exponent rule. Since this has a negative exponent, I move it. Notice up here it didn't have a negative exponent, so I did not move it. Only negative exponents move locations. This has a positive exponent, so it does not move. This does have a negative exponent, so it moves to the bottom. So this is my answer for my 4th problem. So those are just 4 quick review problems for my exponent rules. Again, your exponent rules are the product rule. So if I had an x squared times an x cubed, we talked about how you add them. So that would be x to the 5th. We had our quotient rule, which would be x squared divided by x cubed, and that's where you subtract them. So you get a negative 1, so that means there'd be 1 on the bottom. We had our power to a power rule, so that would be x squared and then cubed, and that's where you multiply them. We had our 0 exponent rule, and that just means anything to the 0 power is 1. And then we had our negative exponent rule, and we said anything with a negative exponent moves locations. So we had 5 different exponent rules, and that's what you just saw in these examples.